the idea behind this panel when we first thought of it was that when we think about our customers, we tend to think of them when they engage with our organisation without necessarily thinking how they interact with the different brands that they engage with. Maybe in the same day they would have spoken to someone from DHL, they may have sorted their insurance out in the morning and maybe spoken to one of the many brands that you represent at Transcom. So I wanted us to think about how those customers would interact with different brands and maybe the different characteristics that each industry brings and the things that we can learn about that. So before we do that, let's go and do a quick round of introductions. So Jennifer, would you mind introducing yourself and Transcom first?
Sure. I'm Jennifer Wells. I'm the VP of Customer Experience for Transcom Worldwide. And Transcom is a customer service partner, and people who hire us are typically smaller, fast-growing companies, all the way to very large global companies. And what they hire us to do is to outsource their customer service. We have about 30,000 agents worldwide, 80 sites, a very strong focus on work at home, and industries that we help typically are fintech, regular tech, e-commerce, and travel is booming, as you heard today. So that's nice. One of our taglines, which I really love, is that we're big enough to matter and small enough to care. And I really like that because we focus a lot on being able to provide very customized solutions for our clients, and we do it with a lot of care. So we build very good relationships with our clients, and we are so close with them because we care about their business, and we always want to respond to help them be successful.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jennifer. Jen.
I know, the second Jen.
Yeah.
So I'm Jen Sharp. I am a contact center director at DHL. For those who don't know DHL, we deliver around 1.8 billion shipments around the world to 220 countries and territories. We have about 380,000 employees, and we can deliver anything from paper clips to pandas. And our vision is to be the logistics company of the world.
Thank you, brilliant, Jen. John?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. John Gilbert, Transformation Director with Atlanta Group, which you may not have heard of. So just to make it a bit interactive, has anybody heard of Swinton Insurance? Can you raise your hand? A few people out there. So we were formed in 2017 as a group, and we've grown since then very rapidly, mainly through acquisition. We've got 10 brands in our stable, and we have 2.3 million customers around the UK, 2.7 million policies, and just over 2,000 people.
Brilliant, thanks, John. I'll stay with you for the first question, if it's okay. So, obviously, the first part of the day we talked about the current economic climate and how that's impacting the world. How do you think that's going to impact your business over the next 12 to 18 months? It's
kind of interesting in the insurance business. You don't hear many people saying that, do you, about insurance? But we've got two types of products. So we've got one product which is effectively mandated. So some things you have to have in order to drive your car on the road or to have a mortgage, insure your home, etc. And then you have others that are more discretionary. So what we're seeing is that in terms of the customer behaviour, we've got more shopping around that's happening. People are ringing up more to get a better deal. We've got less auto renewal happening, which is also driven by pricing reforms that affected the industry in 2021. We're seeing customers also beginning to cancel off some non-mandatory products. They're small numbers, we're not very badly impacted, but pet insurance as an example, increased cancellations because it is something that you can do without depending on your risk appetite. And other things like use of credit. So pay by installments is also increasing as time goes by, and we see the squeeze on incomes.
So people are, you are feeling that people are kind of negotiating more, if you like, for their products. They're trying to cut back on costs where they can.
Absolutely, but not, like I said, it's not a massive impact in our industry, I don't think. So we're seeing that. We're very conscious also of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And we record that, and we do as an organisation, as most organisations should be, we're reacting as best as we can, directing people towards external help, such as financial debt refinancing and energy grants and the like. But I think it's also, just to add, it's also a great opportunity because I think recognising the position that the customer's in is a great way of building trust as well.
Yeah. We'll come and talk about that in a bit more second. Jen, I'll ask you the same question. In terms of the current economic climate, how's that impacting the logistics sector?
Well, we're heavily impacted by what's going on globally. You know, we have a lot of e-commerce clients, and I think after the sort of almost boom of COVID, we're seeing that people are being a bit more careful, not just individuals in their spending, but also businesses. So we are a premium brand, which, you know, I'm incredibly proud of, but it means that, you know, people pay extra to use DHL, and we have to demonstrate that value far beyond maybe what we've done before. But we're an incredibly versatile business that's been around a long time, and we've weathered these storms before, and I suppose it's just about being agile and more strategic in your approach. And for me, from a customer experience perspective, I really have to demonstrate that value, create those emotional connections, and when people are looking at value, they see us as really a part of their business rather than, you know, a supplier.
Yeah. And Jennifer, you know, you represent lots and lots of different brands, as you explained at the start. What are you seeing in terms of the economic environment at the moment?
Well, what we're seeing is kind of interesting and maybe a little surprising. I'm from the tech side of the world, and we're seeing that clients are more interested in digital transformation than they were even a year ago. And why is that? You know, the cost of everything is going up for everybody, so that's eroding their profits, and they need to find ways to reduce cost. So we're looking at a lot of different technologies to be able to reduce cost and improve operational efficiency. And the other thing that I'm finding is that our clients are really focused on customer loyalty. You probably have that as well. And the reason that's important is, someone mentioned this morning, is that, you know, it's a lot less expensive to retain a current client than to get new ones. And so we're very focused on providing technology to retain them and provide good customer support.
Yeah. And how about you, Jen, in terms of, sort of, Jennifer mentioned digital transformation there as being a focus to try and reduce operational costs and drive efficiencies. Are you guys seeing similar things at the moment?
Yeah, I think my least favourite term is operational efficiency. But it's something I talk about all the time. And I think it's using digitalization for an advantage to support our agents and support our customers, rather than actually enforce them to direct and go in a certain direction. So we're seeing a lot of focus from internal digitalization and creating a platform for our agents to be involved and engaged, rather than sort of like pull them along this road that we want our agents and customers to go along. It's like, let them give us some ideas and insights of how they want to use transformation, digitalization from a customer perspective. So like everybody, we're much more focused from a chat, multi-channel usage rather than calls, but we want to make sure we still support our traditional clients that still want to speak to us the way they used to. So it's much more versatile and flexible in the way we work, rather than, you know, everyone sat in their silos. So.
Because you've got different clients, haven't you? You've got your business clients, if you like, and then you've got consumers. Do you see any differences in the way that they want to communicate with you?
Not specifically. I think it's down to personal preference, and I think whether you're, you know, an end user or you're a big customer, I think it comes down to user preference of, would you like to speak to us, chat to us, or email us. And for me, I want to make sure that they feel supported in whatever channel they want to use, and they feel like they get the same great experience. So our calls are 90-10, so 90% of calls answer in 10 seconds. We have exactly the same global KPI for our chats, and we have a quick turnaround on emails. So for me, it's about honouring and supporting those choices that they make, whatever that channel is.
So that's an incredibly responsive, aggressive time that you're working to. That in itself must create a few challenges.
Yeah, but you know, again, for me, it's about engaging with everybody, and I think Bruce talked about it. Is that control, and it's all part of that culture. That whatever position you're in, you feel a responsibility for those global KPIs, and you create connections from, you know, what we're trying to achieve as a business down to how that impacts at agent level as well. So for me, it's about bringing everybody along on that journey, and that they all feel like a part of it, and you create like almost like this massive team that you're all there to support each other. And that's been really important for me to communicate why we're doing this, you know, and how they each individual create that contribution to support.
Thank you. John, you're obviously involved in lots of digital transformation initiatives in your role. Can you tell us a bit about some of the stuff that you've been working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of our digital journey, it started several years ago, and we are on it, but not quite where a lot of speakers were this morning. So because we've grown through acquisition, we have several different platforms, and that creates a challenge. So what we didn't want to do is develop our digital capability on multiple platforms. Instead, go for the target platform and start to build that out. So essentially, we're creating a blueprint out of that and then replicating it. And this is the year where it gets really exciting, because we're about to do that re-platforming piece of work, which is pretty huge. So essentially what we get is, out of the early development, we get a lot of the initial work we've done on quote and buy, building out the journeys from a customer perspective. We've got optimization that we've been working on over the last several years, and then rising adoption rates. So we've learned an awful lot on that digital journey, and introduced live chat as is very common in a lot of businesses. I wouldn't say our transaction volumes are massive, but we're heading in the right direction. And then the other really exciting thing for this year as well is conversational AI. So we've got a virtual assistant project planned. One of my colleagues is sitting out in the audience there. We're about to make decisions on vendors and things, and we're very, very excited about the potential that gives for us, for our customers. I just want to mention one other point, actually picking up something that Jen said earlier, Jen, by the way, is I do, when you think about operational efficiency, I do genuinely believe that efficiency can run hand in hand in favour of both the customer and the enterprise. You're taking waste out of processes. So that's been one of my findings over many years of gathering this grey hair, that you can run the two things in parallel, but I do take your point, they can go against the customer. So yeah, we've got a lot of things in play right now.
Yeah. And John, when we spoke sort of in preparation for the event, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of explore the different things that are unique, if you like, to your industries and how we can learn from those. So insurance, I mentioned the word grudge purchase when we spoke, if you remember. And without, I think insurance is one of those things that we all have to have.
Yep.
And it only really shows its true value when we really need it. And that I had my own personal experience with that this year. I wrote my car off on New Year's Eve.
Goodness me.
Drove it into a flood. Not very good.
Who were you insured with?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But all of a sudden, this grudge purchase that I had turned into the most valuable thing, in the world, because it managed to. I got the money back, and I'm back on the road now. But it's how do you kind of manage that? How do you sort of deal with customers calling in?
I think you've got to recognise the type of customer you're talking to, for starters, and as I was saying, it's a mandatory purchase, it's a grudge purchase in some cases, and it's all about giving the best possible journey that you can and understanding what type of customer you have. And if I just give an example, we've got some customers who just want to get through it as quickly as you possibly can, get to the number. If it's the right price, then they'll buy. If it isn't, that's the main driving criteria. We're trying to provide a differentiated experience. So in other areas where, for example, we've got motorcycle insurance, anybody who's a biker out there may have heard of Carol Nash, and we deal with Harley Davidson, and you've got customers there who are, yes, it's a grudge purchase, but it's also, they're enthusiasts. They're mad about their Harley Davidsons. They have on average 8 different modifications. So we're trying to make that journey much more about the bike, about that experience. And similarly with pet insurance as well. That's clearly not a grudge purchase, Stu, but it's still something where we're trying to differentiate ourselves and show we give the best possible journey, both online and offline.
And you also mentioned before as well that you're starting to see customers choosing to pick the phone up more and speak to somebody, as opposed to engaging on some of the chat channels. Can you talk a bit about that as well?
I think it's partly because we haven't got a very advanced digital platform yet. We're building that, so that does drive a few more calls. I think the other thing to bear in mind as well is, and those of you who do know the insurance industry will know that pricing reforms have had quite a major impact on the industry, and that is that you've got to price your new business and renewals exactly the same. That's the summary of what it's really about. So that in itself drives more calls, because there's a lack of understanding out there. There's been no government programme to educate people on how the pricing reforms work and how it benefits you as a customer. So that factor also drives a larger number of calls. And the challenge for us really is to, as I said earlier, build out our digital capability, install our virtual assistant, and be able to service customers in the channel of their choice, but also our choice. Listening to one of the speakers earlier, we've got to make our own decision about what the best channels are going to be that would best suit the customer.
And one of the things that we saw across the whole, across lots of industries during the early stages of the pandemic was obviously a lot of fear and uncertainty out there within customers, and they chose to want to speak to somebody. So we saw a massive peak in people picking up the phone and calling as opposed to using other channels. Do you think we're going to see the same as we move into this more tighter economic?
It's quite interesting actually, because we'll just come back to vulnerability a little bit. I think what we're seeing is more people are willing to talk about vulnerabilities, talk about things that are affecting them in their lives, and therefore we end up with more conversations that are broader. And actually what we're thinking of doing at the moment is we're thinking about actually building out a more specialist team that can handle those types of calls more effectively, to recognise the differences in the vulnerability and the impact of the cost of living as an example of vulnerability. That's to suit their requirements. So I do think that's something that's going to continue to grow, and I think the way we have to think carefully about how we're going to continue to manage that, so we can satisfy the customer demand but also recognise their own position, and that's with an eye on efficiency as well, of course, because you can't have long extrapolated conversations as it costs more money. So we have to really carefully balance that and make sure that we're satisfying the need for those customers. But like I said earlier, it's a fantastic opportunity to build trust.
Yeah.
It really is a great opportunity to build trust, and we should all be taking it.
Thank you. Jen, when I think about the logistics industry and DHL specifically, one of the things I think about is how you're brilliant at being proactive with customers, keeping them informed where their shipment is, sending them text messages and alerts and so on. I think that's something we can all learn from how the logistics sector is so proactive. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone gets deliveries, everyone's expected a text message and a very small time window of this is your delivery driver, which is amazing and proactive, and I think now we're at the point that's the expectation. I think with that expectation can come disappointment when things go wrong, because you're dealing with global complexities, customs issues and things like traffic, or someone driving their car through some water and then blocking the road or whatever. So again, that then drives that expectation that we've disappointed them, and we talked about the effort scale, and we've talked about the expectations of people and how the challenge of maintaining those expectations all the time. So we need to continue to involve that all the time. So how do we mitigate those challenges? How do we keep them proactive so that they don't have to reach out to us? And that's where we are using digitalization a little bit more to learn when customers are coming to us from our digital assistant, like what do they need? How can we learn to be more proactive and set up alerts so that they don't feel they need to come to us that way. So it's definitely something we're constantly evolving, and it's creating that continuous improvement all the time of looking at data.
Because it's quite an interesting product in many ways, isn't it? Because it's very, very time sensitive, as you'd expect logistics, but I'm expecting my package in a certain time, maybe I've come home from work or whatever. So timing is absolutely crucial to that small window of at the point at which the product is relevant to the customer. Yeah, and to go to John's point, I think sometimes that creates vulnerability when people have that expectations, and there's a lot of emotional connections to their delivery, whether it's personal or business, and then they pass that vulnerability and that pressure and that stress and the economic climate back on the agents as well. So I suppose it's making sure that we're fitting the tone and the support to actually what people need at the time as well. Thanks, Jen. And Jennifer, when I think about your business, you have to be incredibly responsive to your clients' needs. That there may be a new campaign or something like that you need to very quickly recruit for. Can you tell us a bit about that agility and maybe what other organisations can learn from that?
Wow, yeah, that is a tricky part of our business, because sometimes we'll be getting a client that says we need 500 agents in the next month, and so we have to find ways to hire and attract, recruit and train and get everybody up to speed. So we do have different tools that are helping us with this, that helps us automate, and also even in the recruiting stage, we are able to test the agent and test their ability to have empathy and to speak the language in a way that people can understand. And so all of that I'm not an expert on this part, but all of that starting from the HR tools and all the way through the process and training has been a big deal. Through work at home, we had to have a lot of tools to make sure that the agents were, getting trained and getting the support they needed to help everybody. And luckily, we had already had a really strong work-at-home practice in North America. So a lot of the tools that we had there, we brought over to Europe. Yay, finally! And so that was pretty cool. So we had some virtual classroom. We had one of the tools that we have is also about agent engagement, and I know you're talking a lot about that too, and we're really focused on that as well. Mainly, we want to focus on their performance, making sure that they feel comfortable, making sure that they have the support they need. And with that, we're deploying tools like Agent Assist. That's kind of a big target for us this year, and working on that as well. So I'm not sure if I totally answered your question.
No, no, you did. That's
okay.
Great. And it's I think everyone's faced challenges trying to find good people in recruiting over the last year since the end of the pandemic. And I know obviously it's something you guys just have systemized.
Yeah, we have
you
to
do it
turn it
all the time.
Yep.
And I know that we had some really interesting discussions a couple of weeks ago as well about these kind of emerging AI technologies for assisting agents, and you highlighted that would actually be really helpful for you.
Yeah.
Training people up on the fly, as it were.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because where we're looking at Agent Assist is to really improve the speed to proficiency for our agents. So we can actually put them on the phones or chat a little bit earlier than going through the whole process of getting trained, and just making sure that they're comfortable in that process and helping them along.
So things like suggesting responses and
exactly.
popping up knowledge articles when they're having conversations and so
exactly.
on. So interesting.
Yep.
We've got a few minutes left, so I'm gonna again ask if we've got any questions out there within the crowd. You've got one just at the front here, Craig, if that's okay.
Sorry, could you wave again, please? Hiya, my name's Liam Rogers. I work at HomeServe as a change manager. I think the conversations today are obviously around how we're automating, and quite a lot of companies are going down that automation journey, as are HomeServe as well. And I think particularly our company, we're really good at reporting, we've automated X percentage of calls. We report that up, and everybody gives themselves a pat on the back that we've automated a certain percentage of calls, or whatever the case may be. I guess I'm really interested in your thoughts of, if we go back to the conversations that were happening earlier about culture and involving your frontline, how do you have that conversation or communicate with your frontline that automation is going to be good for them? It's not, we're automating and you're going to get replaced by a robot in a few months.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Who wants to go with that?
I'm happy to take that one, actually. I think it's a really good question, actually, because we've got to make sure we engage the team in what we're doing. I think we're very lucky in Atlanta in that we are actually surrounded by an awful lot of people who really embrace change. So one of the things we do a lot of, but probably not, there's never really enough that we can do on this, is communicate about what we're doing. So we have forums, we talk about the change that's happening. We have a business readiness team that's in my area that ensure that people are fully involved in exactly what our intent is, why we're doing it, and what the benefits will be, both to the business, to the customer, and not in that order, I should say, the customer, the individual, and the business. So I think that's a key part of what we do, but I think it's a really vital point, because at the end of the day, I think that's where the rubber hits the road, isn't it? Every single one of our agents, our representatives, are the ones that are facing into the customer, and they need to be comfortable with what your intent is, and we do a lot of work on that. So I think it's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Yeah, from a DHL perspective, I think it all comes back to communication and being really open and honest about the direction we're going, why we're going in it, and actually make them feel a part of that journey. So, for me, I allow all my agents a platform to put forward ideas, like innovation ideas, digitalization ideas, and we really reward that culture. Even if they put forward an idea, that's never going to happen. But we just want them to feel like a part of it, and really just be open and honest, explain. And I want them, my goal is always for them to be their natural best, and innovation and digitalization is all a part of that as well, and give more job variety for those who want it, but allow for a platform that people just want to do the same thing for the next 10 years. There is also that place. There will always be need for traditional CX, right? And there's an opportunity there for people, and there's an opportunity for those who want to move forward. And for me, it's about identifying those people and being able to support them in their goals and aspirations as well, while transforming our customer experience at the same time.
Thanks, Jen. Jennifer?
I didn't quite hear the question, sorry. Could you repeat what he said?
It was about engaging the front line and,
Oh.
and making sure they feel comfortable with automation and that it doesn't feel like it's taking their jobs.
Oh, yeah. Well, we actually think that as we are deploying more conversational AI, that agents are going to be even more critical in the role of this going forward. So we picture that the agents coming to the AI designers and saying, hey, you know, this is what's going on, this is what's happening on the customer side, so could we potentially change the robot or change the chatbot to ask these kind of questions instead? So I think it's going to create more jobs for them and a growth path for them to help us. So I think it's going to be a great job for agents in the coming years.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. We've got time for one more question, I think. So I think we've got one just down the front here, Craig. Thank you.
Mine's probably more for Jen around DHL.
Oh no.
So I guess we've just had a major trading period over peak. At ASOS, we really struggled with the carrier performances. Obviously, we all know what's going on in that world. There's been lots of delays. I guess from our perspective, how did you manage your expectations with your customers, not just your customers that are receiving the parcel, but also your businesses that might have quite a large impact to their business performance from an order point of view? And were you using any kind of conversational AI or any plans in the future to support that for next peak?
Yeah. I think we need to get better at conversational AI. You know, we've got the digital assistant, and again, it is constantly evolving, and it's balancing that expectation with the consumer and being proactive, like, you know, we talked about expectations of where their shipment is, but also really working closely with our suppliers, especially e-commerce, on, you know, forecasting, etc., and like working on those expectations. So we do have a specific team that work after premium customers as well. But yeah, it's about being proactive and supportive and managing expectations, but also, you know, if they do come to us, generally they call us, there's a problem, you know, and it's how we handle that. And I think as much as you can transform things from a digital perspective, nothing replaces that empathy of a human voice at the end of the phone. So again, that goes back to making sure that we still have that, our core KPI still balances across the traditional challenges, sort of contact methods rather than just the digital methods as well.